First, I want to tell you guys this is the best atmosphere I've been around in a long time. Yeah. And also great playing on the guitar. I really enjoy it. And thank you to my boss for bringing me here tonight. This is awesome. So I'm going to rename this. It's along the same lines. It was a rush to the hospital, but there's also a string of surprises that came with the subject, which I'm going to rename the fire. Okay, so my little brother and I are 3 years apart, and we're opposites. I'm very quiet, and I obeyed my parents. My little brother decided it was okay to be a pyromaniac and defy every rule in the house. So one morning, my mom's she was a smoker. She was a stressful person. She smoked, and my little brother, he grabbed her lighter one morning, and the first surprise of this morning, it's in February, was I woke up with a bloody nose. It was dry, and like all of us in here, I was picking my nose because it's so dry. and so I woke up, and my sensitive nose was bleeding. And I had a towel that was somewhere in the room on my nose, and I was kind of like thinking, boy, this sucks. And my little brother started screaming, and he's 3 years old, I'm 6, okay, February, and he's screaming, and I'm like, what, John? I'm on fire! And I'm like, what? So I threw the towel down. There's blood everywhere. And I find my brother, he had started his shirt on fire. He was playing a game. It was start your shirt on fire and pat it out as quickly as you could. And if it didn't stay on fire, you won. But at this moment he had lost, and the fire had spread from his shirt, and it had spread. Oh, this is so funny. Oh my gosh. It had spread up and over, and it burnt off his left nipple. Okay. And it burnt underneath his arm and over his arm. So here's the deal. I get there, and in kindergarten, they taught us to stop, drop, and roll. I did not remember this. What I remembered is that water puts out fire. So I went to the bathroom. We had this huge house. My parents proudly bought this house from a doctor. My dad's only a police officer. I don't know how they got the house. He grabbed a glass of water. I filled up this thing of water, and I ran. I mean, water sloshing everywhere, and like half the cup was left by the time I got to John. I threw it on him. He's like, ah! Just screaming, his arms and legs everywhere. So I ran back to the water, grabbed some more, went to the faucet in the bathroom. I ran, water sloshing everywhere, throw it on him. Ah! And I'm like, dang. So I run back, and I get him. 3 attempts, water everywhere. Finally, my little brother is out, and he is just, the fire's gone. I run downstairs. For some reason, my parents had slept in the hide-a-bed downstairs, and I wake them up. I'm like, Mom, Dad, John's on fire. And they get up, they're in their underwear, and I don't even think about this. Thank God. Anyways. And so they run up the stairs, and my dad grabs John, who's just a wreck, and he's tears, and it was so sad. And then he puts him into the shower with cold water. He's screaming because that hurts. Meanwhile, my mom is frantically running everywhere, and she slips on all the water that's all over the floor. So that was the second surprise, my brother starting himself on fire. The third surprise, he burnt his nipple off. The fourth surprise was her slipping on the water and completely spraining and tearing her ankle up. Okay? Thank God the doctor lived in that house, right? That was a half a block from the hospital. So my dad picked up my screaming brother. My mom, I'm too young. I can't help her up, so she had to crawl somewhere, prop herself up. And we're all limping / running to the hospital. Okay, so remember this is a string of events of surprises. That was 4 surprises. We get there, and another surprise, the 5th one, my brother and I never got along. We're just so different. When we got to the hospital, my brother was in the ER. He's screaming, doctors, nurses everywhere. He's 3. He burnt off his nipple. My grandparents come. My grandparents come to get me because my parents can't possibly take care of me at this point. And my brother, before I went up to John, we're all crying. This is funny, but it was also very traumatic. And so I'm like, John, I have to go. I'm so sorry. And he's like, no, Crystal, like a movie. Seriously, don't And I was like, I'm sorry, I have to go. And then I turned, my grandparents take me to the farm. So here's the thing. My grandparents lived on a farm. They took me to their house. So, and they... I grew up in Detroit Lakes, by the way. Okay, so here's the thing. My brother, because of this, has to go through a series of therapies, and it was very painful. He had third-degree burns. He had, like bubbles all over his hands, bubbles everywhere. It was terrible. So anyways, he had this gel pack. You know those hands you get in a 25 cents per thing, you put money in there, and it's sticky, and it just gets the therapy had this sticky thing on there just like that, and it was a cooling pad he put on his burns. And so one morning he played with it. He's 3. He wants to play with this thing. It never stayed on. He's in pain. He's screaming, but he wants to play with this thing. So early one morning, my parents locked our door because we always got up at 5 a.m. from the outside. And so, anyways, my brother and I are up in the middle. We're up in the middle of the night, 5 a.m. And so we had this cutting board we used to play cards on, and it was about the size of some of your smaller tables where only a couple of you can fit in there, and 4 of us are, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, so I had this cutting table, and it was huge, it was pretty thick, and in the middle of the night, there was this little ant in February, and I was so mad at this ant for living, because it was February, and these annoying things should only live in the summer. So I took this, and my brother was on the bed jumping up and down, playing with this blob. And he wasn't paying any attention to me, but he's just like, yay, jumping. And here I am wanting to destroy this ant. I took the cutting board, and we had this really plush carpet. So every time I tried to get it, it would just go into the carpet, bounce back up, and try to scurry away. So I'm just, die. And it wouldn't die, so I was just so mad. My little brother, meanwhile, is on the bed in his own little world playing with this thing, not paying any attention to me, and I'm trying to kill this and I'm so mad at this ant. And finally, the ant goes across my foot, and in my anger and frustration, I took this, and I would, like, when you get mad, you just punch things as hard as you can. Well, I took all my frustration out on my foot, and I went, ah! Right on my foot, and my brother was so startled by my blood-curdling scream that he shoved this blob into his mouth, and he's jumping on the bed. So then simultaneously he shoves it in his mouth. He hits the back of the wall, and he flies off the bed. And we're stunned. We're like, what just happened? And then we start laughing. He didn't choke on it. Thank God it was too big. And we're laughing hilariously. And the stupid part of this whole thing was the ant still got away. And there must have been about 8 surprises in there somewhere. So there you go. Have a good evening.